allow me to take you back during early part of 90s in Kashmir under the flagship of Kadhmir Aid AJK UK. My very first trip to the refugee camp near the borderline of Poonch and Aweli. I and a few local volunteers from our village in Dangribala embarked on this long journey. The road were very narrow and the dangerous was far greater due to the conditions of the road and the sharp bends. Climbing high up the mountains was a great challenge for me as a driver in my white Jeep. However, with sheer determination and kindness in heart for the fellow Kashmiris from across the border, drove us on and on. A total of 8 to 10 families were in this particular camp, some in tents, and one had a rented mud house given to them by the locals. It was late winter and the snow was still falling in certain parts. There, the children needed warm clothes, a dry place to shelter, hot food. We could see the conditions were bare minimum as they didn't have much. The journey which they took perhaps was far more dangerous than the one we made reaching them in winter. We assessed that each family had small boys and girls of different ages. What they asked is to provide with warm clothes, especially 2 new sewing machines for the girls so they can fix their own clothes. They also asked for food packages to take them through the remainings of winter. We gathered all the information and set back to our base camp in Mirpur, AJK, promising to return with the required items or goods as soon as possible. Thus, this completed our first journey. During our way back over the mountain of district Poonch, the weather suddenly changed and it started to snow. As the volunteers saw snow for the first time in their lives and the Jeep getting stuck as often, there is a short clip in the video as a statement to the fact that the journey wasn't all smooth way back. Our second trip was to carry the clothes, food and 2 sets of brand new sewing machines. In this trip, the volunteers team was somewhat different to the first one. The difficulties that we had during the remaining journey was that this time the Jeep was fully loaded with goods to deliver to the refugees. The traveling was somewhat slower going up or even down the mountains. Once we arrived at the refugee camp, we unloaded the goods with help of the fellow team volunteers, and also the refugees members chipped in to help us to carry the load up the side of the mountain where the refugees were living. We laid the items on floor and on a charpai, which is a khatkol in the local language, on front of the house. Having given all the items as to the our worksheet, we wanted to return home safely. However, we couldn't. The refugees insisted that we have nothing but a bare minimum, a cup of tea specially made for us. I left with the fellow members both sad and happy that I have kept my promises and returned with goods. Sad because I will not return back, and to this day that is the case, well over 32 years ago. The return journey back again brought its challenges, and the weather once again changed over the mountain snow and the slow climb up the hill. The end of the day we reached with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the blessing of Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, reached home safely. My final trip, or the third trip, with a new team of members again, because this time 2 fellow members from UK were with us on this occasion, and also local cousin of mine tagged along. This time we went to a different camp inside the district Punch. We didn't had much knowledge of this particular camp, and it became as an investigative trip. And the camp was laid on one side of a dry riverbed. There was approximately 60 to 80, we believe, camps. When we got there to the camp, we stopped over a fair distance and started to inquire of the overall situation of the camp. And we were surprised that there were 3 different tribes or castes within the camp, and they were all, had their own particular positioning or land allotted to them for their camps. And there were many stories as that relationship within the camp was so poor. The distribution goods good distribution goods that came a few weeks ago were attacked and left the camp with anger. A fellow truckload of goods were looted a week ago, and this aid was from Muzaffarabad, capital of AJK. The visiting members were a bit sad as well to learn that we are here to give them free volunteering help, but this was the situation. And we discussed on the site whether it is prudent to go ahead into the camp and do make some commitment, but finally came to this conclusion that this camp didn't needed our help or aid. On this occasion, the weather changed once again, and it started to snow, and we cut the trip short as I had dropped the visitors back off to Mirpur and then back to my way to Dangribala. What a journey. I prayed and hope that everyone enjoyed this documentary, and it's just like a small piece of archive. I mean to do many more for your knowledge and information, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, go with you. And I says, for this particular documentary, it's Allah Hafiz.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear Kashmiris, my dear followers, wherever you are in this world, thank you very much for giving time to watch this documentary. And if you support my channel and subscribe to my channel, inshallah, I will give you more of Kashmir, more of new documentaries in the foreseeable future. So please help my channels. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, go with you. Allah Hafiz.